What if you can learn from the FBI how to negotiate? What if you can learn from the FBI how to push a couple deals through the pipeline faster this month? Well, today I have an ex-FBI agent who's going to bring some tactics and strategies, along with a PR publicist who knows a thing or two about grabbing attention and about influencing people, who's going to give us some ideas, 2 specific strategies that you can adopt today to help you to negotiate, to build better pipeline, and to close more deals. It is straight money. You're going to love it. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I am so excited to be here with you today, and on this episode, I have the one and only Mr. Chip Massey, and we have the one and only Adele Gambardella. Now, they're both fantastic human beings, but not only are they really cool, they both understand and have a love for sales just as much as you and I do. Now, go back to, let's talk about Chip for a second. He is an ex-FBI agent. He's done negotiation tactics and strategies, and he brings some influence and ideas to the table. When you look at Adele and her background, not only does she have a lot of marketing and sales experience and PR experience, she understands people and understands people behavior, understands how to grab attention. You put both of these 2 people together, and they're creating something amazing. And they wrote a very, very powerful book. We have a link down in the show notes. We want you to check it out. They both wrote an amazing book together. It's called Convince Me, High-Stake Negotiation Tactics to Get Results in Any Business Situation. Now, specifically in the sales world, we need to negotiate effectively, especially right now. People are a little bit more conservative with the way that they're spending, and we want to make sure that we're giving them the best value and also help them to understand that. Now, this book is a phenomenal book and piece of content, and I want you to go ahead and check it out, and you can find more details in the show notes. Right now, I want you to subscribe to the podcast if this is your first time doing it. And I want you to tell somebody else about it. As we go into this episode, I want you to listen to these 2 tactics, see how you can frame them in your sales approach, and see how they can help you not only win more business, but also help you to increase your influence. It's powerful. You're going to love it. Check it out. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate
you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I'm so excited to have you all today because, one of the things that we find is you can always, so often salespeople go with the same old things that we've learned over and over. This is what my manager taught me, and this is what's been passed down and so forth. But what I really like about, especially with the podcast, is getting opportunities to bring folks like you all on that we can have a unique way of looking at things. Because you have, it may not be the discipline traditionally of sellers, but you have some discipline from your FBI background that could really help us. So we're really looking forward to that and to dive into to the conversation. Today in particular, we want to go straight into one of the concepts. And I gave I know obviously people just learn about you guys and learn about your fun stuff. And I put your introductions and things about you in the in the show notes so folks can get access to that. But in particular today, we want to talk about several different concepts. Before we do, give us a quick highlight though about your experience and how your experience tied to helping B2B sales professionals.
Absolutely. So I started my own agency about 15 years ago. So I was thrown into the deep end of B2B sales without really any experience. So what I did, Donald, is I just started picking up the phone. I started cold calling with not much success. But then what I figured was what people really wanted to get from me and my agency, which was media coverage. And so when I called up, I would say, hey, I already got you a media hit on such and such station or in publication. How about a meeting with me so that, we could get more of these for you? And that seemed to work. That was my strategy, and that got me 5 to 7 clients. And then I had to actually learn how to sell. So, but hey, that got me to like that first 5 to 7 clients, and that was super exciting. So that was my strategy initially. Wish I would have had a podcast like this to listen to get great information. But I started my career as a journalist, then went over to the public relations side. And PR and selling, while different disciplines, is sort of the same idea, which is I'm selling you a concept, I'm selling you a segment, a show. I'm selling you the idea of who my client is as it relates to your publication, broadcast outlet, etc. So there is quite a bit of selling in that. So it was not a huge transition for me to go over into sales when I was selling for my company, but there was still a ton to learn. So yeah, that's the long and short of it for me.
Yeah. And how about you, Chip?
Right. So for me, it's when I came out of the government service, right? So it was all about when I first met Adele, we were at an entrepreneurial dinner, and it was one of those things where we introduce what we do. And Adele working in PR and crisis comms, and myself as a former hostage negotiator special agent, she said, we have some stuff to talk about. Let's up another. So that was like 5 years ago, August. And Adele just started interviewing me for hours about what I learned at Quantico, how I applied it in the field, what did I learn as a hostage negotiator. And then she married that with a template of business. And the idea here is that what we do now and say is that it's true crime meets business, right? As a means of training. And so, because everybody loves Law and Order, everybody knows those first three notes of the show, and Netflix, it's one of the highest categories, right?
Cha-ching.
So that's how it all started. Yeah.
So this is really cool because, going into this topic now, we want to look at that, particularly today on this episode, the forensic listening side, and I also want to get some of some of your elements of those essential elements that makes event effective convincing. And hopefully we can have time to cover a lot of that. And there's just so many great insights here. But the listening part, I really want to just start off with forensic listening. Can you start off by explaining what that is and how that can best help us here as sellers?
Sure. And it's the idea of what we're talking about here, Donald, is that convincing and understanding what somebody's unstated narrative is. It all starts with forensic listening. And forensic listening is the art and science of analyzing a conversation after it's happened. Because what we say is words leave clues. And so we suggest that people listen to a person either on the phone, on Zoom, or in person in four ways. And the first is going to be about the emotion. What emotion is present? The next is going to be theme development. What things are they talking about? And they may not be exactly the same as why they met with you. But if they repeat something again and again, it's important to them, so you need to take note of that. The other is going to be their voice, their pitch, tone, and cadence of their voice. Where is it that they're going up? Where do they seem excited? Where are they down? Where are they plateaued? You pay attention to all that. And the last is going to be body positioning. And we differentiate body positioning from body language in that we're all creatures of movement, and how we interact with our world and with other people. It's all about how that person is presenting themselves. So if you have a line of sight on somebody and they're, you can tell when they're very animated or when they're tired of maybe your sales pitch and they're kind of blading away from you, right? Or they're looking at other things. So we combine all four of those. We suggest people take notes after they've had that meeting. And after a while, you can do this in that situation, but it takes some discipline. And that if you combine all these things, you get an idea. And what we say here, Donald, is that imagine you go back to that person 2 weeks, a month later, and say, when you were talking about really understanding your sales reps, it made me think, and you gave me like one helpful thing. And I went back and I implemented that thing to my sales team. And I want you to know it's made a profound difference. It's like people are reacting to this whole thing in such a different way with the client relationships. It's boosted our sales by 16%. So I just wanted to say thank you. And can you imagine the effect that has on somebody? Because rarely are we validated to that extent. And we call that targeted validation. But it can be used in a myriad of ways. But that's the idea of forensic listening.
But, something like that you mentioned, like, how does someone get better at that? Because there's a lot there that you're sharing as I'm, listening to this. And I'm thinking as a sales leader, I'm like, how in the world am I going to I can't get these folks to make the phone call, like you're saying there, Adele. Like, how do I get them to start understanding and apply that? Is there a way that you feel that this is best taught to individual contributors?
What I would say is just think about if you can really analyze each meeting that you have on a deeper level, you're not just writing notes for notes' sake. There are AI programs for that, like Otter AI. Download Otter AI and let that take the notes for you. What you're listening for is a deeper understanding of who it is you're talking to. And you get that by understanding what their emotions are. What are they really passionate about? Where do they have energy? What stories and themes do they return to over and over again in the meeting? What is their body positioning as they speak to you about certain topics? And what is their voice, their pitch, their tone, and their cadence? If you're a sales leader and you pay attention to those things, you are going to be so much far and ahead of any competition that you have because they're not looking at the person at that deeper of a level. But one easy way to implement this is to just think about when you take those notes, go look back on Otter. Don't even use our forensic listening side. That's fine. But what you want to do is every time you speak to someone, you will get the best reaction if you just use this line. You know, Donald, last time we spoke, you said XYZ and it really made an impact. If you just say that, you are going to get that person to be so much more interested in you, so much more interested in hearing about what did I say that was so brilliant. People are so easily taken in by that. It's really true. And it's not manipulation if you're saying it in a way that's genuine and you're connecting with that person. And it's a way to create rapport so easily.
You know, and and you, Chip, you brought this up with the emotion side, and Dell, you just kind of married that too. Like, I feel like we hear this all the time in sales. We're emotional creatures as human beings, right? We make our decision emotionally, justify them logically, but oftentimes sellers, we go back and we're very logical, and we don't capitalize on the emotional side, where we might say, you know, hey, buy my product, it has this many features, and it's like very logical. It's like, yeah, that's true, but I want to get, you want to get to that emotional reasoning. I want to really connect with you emotionally before I can do anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Donald. And you know what's interesting about what you just said is that's an interesting point that we bring about in our book, which is the idea is, are you an emotional convincer or are you a fact-based convincer? Now, or who are you selling to? Is that person a fact-based? Is that person influenced by facts or are they influenced by emotions? And your style versus the style of the person that you're speaking to may differ. So I may be an emotional convincer. And when I go in for a sale, I'm going to tell you the best stories. I'm going to tell you how you're going to feel after you purchase it. I'm going to tell you everything that's wonderful about my product and how you're going to really be changed by it. And you're a fact-based convincer. So you don't hear anything you're fact-based in how you want to receive the sale. So when I do that for you, you're like, I'm tuning her out. She's not saying anything I want to hear. I want to hear what the facts are. What's the data? What's the stats that make sense for me to buy this product? So you have to change both your style and you have to understand the style of the person you're selling to. And that's not always that intuitive. That's why you got to practice that forensic listening stuff first, right? They give you clues. People give you clues as to what type of convincer they are. Let me ask you this, Donald. What type of convincer are you, would you say? Are you emotional or fact-based?
I'd probably say out emotional.
Okay.
Because, and this is the reason why, because I've done like the theater and the performance and, as a speaker and so forth, like I've recognized how emotions can be a critical part, of that process. But you do bring some. I mean, you have a point here, I'm sure. But you bring something up, and I'll share that in a second. But yeah,
it's just I think that most of us don't change our style. It's like we go in with emotions because we're going to be super effective at that. That's the thing that we know is going to work because we've tried it so many times. And what our book convinced me, and all the research we did showed, was that people have the same convincing style they had since they were about age 6. So when you were in kindergarten, first grade, you were probably a good emotional convincer, right? You were like the kid on the playground who figured it out. You told good stories. You made friends that way, right? And your style changed maybe a little bit, but it doesn't change that much because what we know is what we're comfortable with, right? So that style worked for you as a kid. It's likely going to work for you as an adult. And most of us just don't switch. We don't try new things because it's scary. You're not all of a sudden going to be a research guy. You're not going to go in with with a tab of stuff and say, "Hey, here's all the facts and stats about why you should buy my product," because that wouldn't feel right to you. But maybe there's some balance that, you could bring in that could make you just a little bit more convincing. So it's sort of interesting.
I love it. And there's a strategy that we talk a lot about in our organization. Is called the golden rule versus the platinum rule, and which you just hit on. The golden rule states treat others the way that you would like to be treated. The platinum rule states treat others the way that they would like to be treated, and you got to be able to be willing to switch according, like you're saying here,
Exactly.
to what folks can do with that. Which is again amazing, and I really like. And what I took from this whole section is like, if I, as a seller, when you're talking, listening Chip, when listening to you, Adele, identify those emotional places where you're the most excited, and just be cognizant of that. And those are going to help me.
Hugely helpful. Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's so much we can talk about too, by the way. This book is amazing. And guys, we have a link down in the show notes so you can get access to that book. And you can see all the details there. But I want to talk about the other side, the convincing side. Let's go deeper into that. Can you take some time and explain that to us, those elements of convincing?
So what we say here is that the idea is that we usually go in with our strongest point first. It's like, this product, my service, my company is the best, and that's how we've been trained and brought up, right?
And gosh darn it, people like me.
To make that sale. But like Adele was saying, in her past as a journalist, she was taught, you go in and you make the strongest point when you're writing that article. Yet research shows, 40 years of research shows that that's not how it's done. What you want to do is you want to find that point of agreement. That's where you're going to start. And that's where you've heard that phrase before, Donald. It's like, well, we can all agree. And if you hit that in the right tone, in the right way, what's happening there is that people aren't going to be as defensive. And that amygdala hijack that people get whenever, people know, experienced sellers know, I can't make that click. Because if I do, they're going to get defensive, they're going to shut down. So we make it easy, approachable.
Or they're going to feel like they're being sold to, right? I think the next action in the convincing continuum, as we call it, is that point of agreement, and then it's zoning in on FUD. So that's fear, uncertainty, and doubt that the person may feel about either the seller, the product, the service, the situation, the price. It could be a number of different things. But what happens to experienced sellers, I think, is they focus too much on the fear and they stay just on the fear. And they don't really capture the uncertainty and doubt that the person who they're selling to may have. And that may be much more important to the person they're selling to than they might think. But here's the other really fun thing about this convincing continuum is the next step after point of agreement, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right, is getting that person to think about something that's almost like a cliffhanger. It's like, I'm giving you just enough information so that you can go and research my product, my service, what we do. And you can obviously create a book, right? Good salespeople do this. They have awesome follow-up, right? It's like you get off the phone with that person and it's like, I'm going to send you testimonials. I'm going to send you my media book. I'm going to send you, all the social proof you could possibly imagine that makes us the right decision. But I'm going to give it to you so that you can make a decision that you want to follow up and you want to call me again. And you have to have the discipline to stop, right, Chip?
Yeah, that's what it is that because what we often do is that we're so eager and we're so anxious to let's close this thing out. And we say, okay, how about now? You can see how I'm the best. This is it. This is the way to go, right? And it's the wrong thing because then the sale meter goes up in their head, right? And they're like, done. And they kick out. So what you do, just like Adele said, you give them that cliffhanger. That cliffhanger is designed, that question you're going to pose to them, that's going to make them think about you afterward in a positive way. They have to do a little bit of research because they want to. And that's the thing. It's a positive kind of brain working neurology that you're inserting there, so that it's happy, endorphins are going off, and they're very excited by it.
What could be some examples of some of those cliffhangers? Maybe stuff that you've used, Adele or Chip, or maybe we could just walk through some of them. Me create one right now. But if I'm on a call with a prospect, what are some of those cliffhangers that I could utilize that can help them to remember me?
The idea would be something like a quiz or an assessment that someone can go take and say, hey, you know what? We know that you're really interested in, in something related to B2B sales. And we have a quiz that's going to show you where you are on the sophistication level. And when you get that number back, we're going to be able to have a second discussion around where you are on your journey. And then all of a sudden it becomes like a much better conversation. Maybe it's a white paper. Hey, we have some research right around how people in your field think and feel about this. Would you like to see it? We did something really fun that worked so well. We did a bunch of sales, and then we said, we went to a trade show that was specific to an industry, specific to a market. And we were selling marketers at that point, agency, we were an agency and we were selling marketers. And so we had the marketers come up and do a confessional booth where they were totally anonymous, right? They were totally anonymous. Like, I'm Catholic, right? So it was like perfect. It was a confessional booth, and they came up and they were like, oh, if only my boss knew this, if only they knew that, and I need help here, and they don't know that I need help here, and they're always saying these words, and I hate that. And our sale was, for the point of agreement, we all know that marketers need help in certain areas, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Although we don't know how to help them best, we know that there's some doubt in what products and services and assistance you may need. But there should no longer be, because we actually have confessions from real marketers in your industry. Do you want a copy of that list of confessions? And people were like, oh my God, where can I get that? What is that? Like, send them to me. They were dying for it. So that's a perfect example of taking them all the way through the continuum. But then they would come back and say, wow, I didn't know people in our industry were concerned about this. Can you help us fix this? And we got so much business just from that, because it's a more natural way of selling. The person doesn't feel forced. They're unfreezing their cognitive biases on their own.
Yeah. It probably it feels like I think you mentioned we're not alone. This is something that others are facing, other challenges. The whole cliffhanger idea keeps me intrigued and want to be able to do it. And that follow-up becomes natural, as opposed to this painstaking process where I'm just hunting you down and you're, giving me the silent treatment, so to speak. In that process. Any stories on how you've applied that idea, Chip, and you're in the government side?
So what you want to do is you want to, as a hostage negotiator, I never negotiated with anyone. My job was to convince them. It's actually a misnomer. My job was to convince them to value what I valued. So, for instance, you never said, guys got inside this apartment with a gun to somebody's head. I never said, let's say there's 7 people in there. I never said, tell you what, you give me back 4, kill 3, call it a day, right? That wasn't an option. And so this guy's demanding $20 million and a jet. And am I going to give him $20 million a jet? No, right? Because that's not real. But what is real is that, will I talk about that jet? Yep. Will I talk about what he's going to do with that $20 million? Yep. And why am I doing that? I'm getting information. I'm building a relationship with that guy, and I'm getting him to talk, because I always want the people to talk. We always, in sales too, we want that other person to talk. The more they talk, the better we understand that person, even if it's negative, right? And so what we say there is that we're moving them down, just like the continuum, because it's no longer about, that thing that they're certain that they wanted, but now it's about something else entirely. So that was negotiations, hostage life and death. And in our situation, what we say is that find that person's unstated narrative. And that's that holdback. That's a thing that people really believe about you, your product, your service, what you're selling, and what they're going to tell you to your face. There's a disconnect, right? There always is. And if you can get closer to what that person's unstated narrative is, what they really believe, not that you're going to hit it exactly, not that it's going to be right on the nose.
And maybe even you shouldn't.
Right. That could be uncomfortable. That's a good point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I would never have done that in hostage negotiation. I would never actually, describe that person's psychological background to him to a T. Never. I want that guy to tell me, right, what it is about him. It's similarly in sales, same way, right? They will reveal things to you if you listen, like we're saying with forensic listening. People are dying to tell you what they really believe and think. They're just wanting that opening, that possibility.
And Donald, I have to tell you, I just feel like, when Chip and I started selling together, I became so much better at sales because I'm like, I was missing all of these clues because I'm so focused on, I want to get the price, I want to close the deal, I want to get them to the other side, when's the contract going? And he's listening at such a different level, which is what we really encourage salespeople to do. Go in as a team. Go in as two people. You cannot do the tactics and the listening. It's very difficult to do it on your own. You can, it's harder. So if you could have two people go in and do a sale, the one person listening for all the clues and the other person doing the tactical selling, moving them down the continuum, doing it the way they were. I mean, you would have a dream team. You just need two people.
Love it. I wish we could go on forever. Tell us about the book. Where can I get the book? And how could I use this as a sales leader?
Sure. It's called Convince Me.
Hey!
I'm a good publicist. And you can get it at Barnes & Noble. You can get it on Amazon. Leave a good review, please. And, go get yourself a copy. We're super excited to have people have this book. And even if you learn one or two strategies, which we know that it is chock full of really applicable tactics, you are going to be so much more convincing than you were when you started and when you were 6.
I love it. Well, we appreciate you all so much. We're going to go ahead and put a link down in the show notes so folks can get access to this and so they can check you guys out and connect and see if there's opportunities there for training or collaboration. But we really appreciate you all coming on the show today, helping us become better listeners and guiding us to be able to help convince people. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Donald.
We actually have a training program code, Training So Good It's Criminal. So you can see that at training.sogood.com. Check it out. Yep.
Trainingsogood.com?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. You're a publicist. For sure.
I can't.
It's in the show notes, guys. Check it out. I love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adele. Thank you, Mr. Chip. I appreciate you all. Man, there's some good stuff here. I feel like it's illegal to be able to learn these tactics, but the principles behind these, man, they can be used anywhere in life, right? Not only in sales, but also in other influences in the business world. Thank you guys for coming on the show today. Please go ahead and find your details down in the show notes. As always, we want you to thrive and succeed, sellers. We want you to be able to increase your influence. We want you to be able to close more deals. These things won't happen by osmosis alone. You got to apply them. You listen to the podcast. Now, what are you going to do? Take some action. Let's use this stuff. And I promise you, as you do so, you're going to find amazing success. Goodness. As always, I want you to thrive and succeed. You should check out our sales mastermind too. The next semester begins in August, and I would love to have you. The mastermind consists of 12 sales professionals just like you and me. We get a chance to hear from each other. We work on a goal that we're trying to accomplish, and we don't take no for an answer. We really want you to thrive and succeed. If you're looking for an environment where you're going to get pushed, where you're going to have accountability, where you're going to get trained, where you're going to get guidance, and you're going to shatter your sales goals, you need to check it out. thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. We meet virtually. thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. Each cohort only has 12 spots, and I would love to have you into the next one. As always, raise your level of thinking, go out and do big things. See you in the next one.